It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Like I said, provocative title. Some people will be offended that I've picked it up and read it and talked about it, but I really love to understand what's going on and why people are having the reactions to books that they're having.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Okay, I think today, Kylie, we're going to have a fairly controversial and provocative book club. It's just a feeling that I've got based on the book that you have in your hand and the book that I have in mine. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome. It's so great to have you listening. We so very much appreciate you being here. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson. I'm the founder of happyfamilies.com.au and the host of Channel 9's Parental Guidance Season 2, coming soon in 2023. I'm here with Kylie, mum to our 6 daughters. We've been married since the late 1990s and we've got 6 kids. Our youngest is aged 8. Our oldest has moved out and married. Second one leaves home in a couple of weeks. Couple of months. I shouldn't wish those days away.
I was going to say.
Shortly after Christmas. Kylie, every month on usually the 4th Thursday of the month, we do a podcast episode that has nothing to do with parenting at all. It's book club, just the books that we've been reading. So you and I are both avid readers, both read sort of 30, 40, even 50 books a year. How many are you up to now?
34.
34. That is good going. A lot of fiction in there though, right? You've read a lot.
Yeah, there's probably more than half. You make it sound like it's been an easy read for me to read 34 books.
Oh, no,
because
that's
half
good
of
going.
it's fiction.
Yeah, it's great going.
But I have never read this many books.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It's so good. And I love reading these books because they even fiction, it expands your vision, it changes your perspective, it opens you up to new worlds, new ways of thinking. It's fabulous. I'm just checking my book reviews list right now and I've just finished my 33rd book for the year. So, but I've written 2. So
You win.
well, I just haven't had as much time to read this year as I normally would read. So you want to go through 2 today. I want to go through 1. Which one are you going to start with?
Oh, look, I'll get that sugar book out of the way.
Okay, so this is based on I don't know if it's based on a film, but the guy's name is Damon, I don't know how to say his last name, Gameau?
Gamia?
I'm going to say Gameau.
Okay.
It sounds French. And he had a movie that came out a little while ago called That Sugar Film, which I remember watching on an aeroplane once and thinking, I've got to give up sugar. That was so good.
So they've just taken the findings from that documentary and made it into a really palatable book.
I see what you've done there because of that sugar book. It's really palatable. Very good. Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't.
You-
I'm not that quick.
You are brilliant and you don't even know it. That's what's going on. So tell us about it.
So for those of you who know nothing about it, the sugar film was basically this guy who decided that he wanted to see the damage that sugar was doing in real time.
Right.
So he took it upon himself to eat the average American's sugar intake in one day.
Okay.
Which is 40 teaspoons of sugar.
That is a lot of sugar. Like if I saw one of my kids put 40 teaspoons of sugar on their Wheat Bix, I would go apoplectic.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, though, he had specific rules that he had to work with.
Okay.
All right. So he had to consume 40 teaspoons. Absolute.
Yep.
Had to consume 40. But they had to be hidden sugars found in healthy foods, inverted commas,
Right.
and drinks, such as breakfast cereals, muesli bars, and juices. He wasn't allowed to have any soft drink, ice cream, confectionery, or chocolate.
Wow.
So we're taking out all of the bad stuff, again, in inverted commas.
And he's still getting 40 teaspoons a day.
So the sugar must consist of sucrose or fructose, specifically where they are added or naturally occurring. And even though carbohydrates like bread break down into a type of sugar, they were not counted.
Okay.
So he always had to choose low-fat foods and he had to maintain exercise.
Right.
So that were the rules that he worked on. So you think about it, you've taken out ice cream, confectionery, chocolate, and soft drink out of the equation. And what astounded me was on his final day, he consumed the average child's lunchbox. That was his final meal.
Right.
And without even trying, there was 40 teaspoons of sugar in it.
No
so
way.
we're talking about
what's the average child's lunchbox?
Sandwich?
I was going to say a sandwich with like peanut butter or jam or something.
Maybe a little box of sultanas, so dried fruit.
Yeah, that's kind of on the healthier side, I would have thought. But obviously kind of sugary, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A popper.
Uh-huh.
Some fruit bites, a muesli bar.
For those who are overseas and don't know what a popper is in America, they call it a juice box. Yep.
Yeah. So when he broke
and
it,
muesli bars, you said.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So when he broke it down, do you know how much sugar is in a Just juice box or popper?
I'm going to guess like they're 250 mils. So now that you've said what you said, and knowing that juice is pretty sugary, I'm going to guess like 8 to 10 teaspoons.
Yeah. Yeah, so in 1 litre
Yep.
of a Just Juice box,
Okay, so that's 4 of them.
25 teaspoons.
Holy smokes, that's a lot
25.
of sugar.
Gatorade.
But if it's in fruit juice, isn't it healthy? I mean, I know anyone who's got a nutrition degree or a nutrition qualification or a dietetics degree right now is probably screaming at the speakers saying, just stick to psychology, Justin. You don't know what you're saying. But this is why we do this book club, right?
Yeah, so he talks about the fact that we think that, for instance, that the sultanas in a box is a really healthy snack, right?
Yeah.
But when he counted out how many sultanas were in the box, there was 91.
Yeah, 91 sultanas in a box.
Sultanas in a box.
Okay.
He tried to eat 91 grapes and he couldn't get past 25.
That's a lot of grapes.
So
yeah.
It's the saturation point. It's the fact that when it's packaged in a certain way, we can eat so much more. So juice is a really good example of this, because if you juice 4 oranges, you're not getting the equivalent of 4 oranges because you've taken out fibre. You've just got.
You've only got the juice of the orange, not the rest of the orange.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
And so therefore you've got the equivalent of 4 oranges sugar.
Yeah, and I would never sit down and eat 4 oranges.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
And so, usually you're not just having 4 oranges, right, in your juice. You're having all of the other bits and pieces with it. So you're adding all of that and consuming it in one sitting, as opposed to what you would do if you were eating the whole fruit over a whole day, for instance, or even over 3 or 4 days.
Okay, so you've read that sugar book by Damon Gameau. What have you done? I mean, we're not having fruit juice in the mornings anymore. So you're keeping me off sugar. How are you getting off sugar?
Yeah, I'm not doing so well.
I'm suffering here and you're cheating. Is that what you're saying?
We've talked about this a little bit.
You've read the book. It's affected me, and you're still living life. Is that where we've landed?
What I am noticing, this is the one thing I am noticing.
I noticed that you haven't answered my question.
And you're noticing it as well, is that when we do eat sugar, and we're talking specifically about ice cream, confectionery, chocolate, that kind of stuff, we're noticing just how quickly our body responds.
Yeah, so it blows my head off and then I get super tired.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he talks about all of that and just shares the experience that he had 60 days, 40 teaspoons of sugar a day.
That's so much.
He put on 8.5 kilos.
Wow, in 2 months. And he was still exercising and he wasn't eating junk food.
Yeah. And 10 centimetres on his waistline.
No way.
And the one thing that blew everybody away in the experiment was that within 3 weeks of him starting this diet, he had developed fatty tissue in his liver, which is just astronomical. They had never seen such deterioration so quickly.
So he must have been a pretty healthy guy.
Very healthy.
Right.
Like when they did all of the tests, they literally said, you are in prime condition.
Good shape.
Yep.
Okay, so out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
Look, I'd give it a 4. It was a really easy read. There are times it kind of probably went a little bit over my head once he started getting a bit sciencey with me.
Yeah.
But the overall arch of it was just really powerful. And we are talking about how we might implement.
So what are we going to do about it?
It's really tough.
I know.
Like it's really tough once you're in a routine and you've got kids involved who do or do not want to get involved or are very entrenched in their eating habits.
To me, the hardest thing of all is the foods that he's talking about, the foods that you've described. They're convenient, they're quick and easy. If you really, truly want to eat well, because we're not in the habit of it. I mean, I don't think that we're bad, but I don't think we're great either.
Well, it's interesting.
It requires effort.
It does. And he acknowledges that. He acknowledges that.
Yeah.
So he showed a picture of what his fridge looked like before, what he was doing, like pretty much eating a raw diet, really.
So he was super healthy.
Cooked meats and just fruits and vegetables and nuts.
Yep.
And then what his fridge looked like once he went on the experiment. And I kind of looked and I went,
looks like
our pantry and fridge look like that. And I feel like for the most part, we eat a relatively healthy diet.
Wow.
But when you actually start looking at the labels, you recognize just how much sugar is in everything.
Okay, so we need to wrap up that book review of that sugar. That was a long review. We've only got 5 minutes to get through 2 more books, and I want 4 of those 5 minutes. So the book that I want to talk about is a provocative title. The background of this book, there's a guy by the name of Salman Rushdie. He wrote the book in the late 1980s, and the Iranian leader issued a fatwa. He said, if you find this guy, he's written a sacrilegious book about the Prophet Muhammad and you must kill him. So I've known that story since I was a kid, and I've never really had any interest in it. But a couple of months ago, he was attacked on stage, I think in New York City, and it brought it back to my remembrance. And I thought, I'm going to get the book. I'm the kind of guy that runs towards the fire. I like to know what people are talking about. I like to understand where the controversy lies and why. And I just thought, I'm going to get the book and I'm going to have a read of it. The book is called The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. I don't know if I can accurately describe what the book is about. It's the hardest novel that I think I've ever read in my life. I mean, this book was really hard to read, and it transcends and transverses time and space. It's just a roller coaster. It's, in so many ways, it's ingenious. I mean, the guy has written an incredible book, but I don't know what to give it out of 5 because it was painful.
I was about to say, having been a witness to you as you went through it, you would get so frustrated because you'd been reading for so long and still hadn't got very far into the book.
So the book has 550 pages or thereabouts.
Tiny print.
And I got up to page 350 before I finally went, now I get it. And from page 450 on, I was like, now I'm in. But it made me work for it, but the payoff was huge. So I don't know how to rate the book because on one hand I want to give it a 1 out of 5. On the other hand, I want to give it a 5 out of 5. But what I thought I would do to describe why I loved it is I've highlighted just a handful of sentences on different pages. As I was reading, I got to about page 200 and I thought, if I'm going to review this book on the podcast, I've got to have something to say about it. And right now I don't know what I'm going to say about it. So I just started to dog ear. I only did it 3 or 4 times in the entire book. Pages where his writing was, you could literally open any page and find writing like this. Let me share this with you. Here's a line from it. So the return of the butterflies lifted many spirits, but when the expected wonders failed to materialize, the locals sank back little by little into the insufficiency of the day-to-day. The name of the Zamindar's mansion, Peristan, may have had its origins in the magical creature's fairy wings, and the village's name, Titlapur, certainly did. But names, once they are in common use, quickly become mere sounds, their etymology being buried, like so many of the earth's marvels, beneath the dust of habit. And he uses metaphor. His writing is just majestic. I love this line that this paragraph. This is an entire paragraph as he's describing what's happening in this city. Water began to drip steadily through the dormer window. Outside in the treacherous city, a thaw had come, giving the streets the unreliable consistency of wet cardboard. Slow masses of whiteness slid from sloping grey slate roofs. The footprints of delivery vans corrugated the slush. First light and the dawn chorus began, chattering of road drills, chirrup of burglar alarms, trumpeting of wheeled creatures clashing at corners, the deep whir of a large olive-green garbage eater, screaming radio voices from a wooden painter's cradle clinging to the upper story of a free house, roar of the great wakening juggernauts rushing awesomely down this long but narrow pathway. From beneath the earth came tremors denoting the passage of huge subterranean worms that devoured and regurgitated human beings, and from the skies the thrum of choppers and the screech of higher gleaming birds. Just the way he describes what a morning looks like in a metropolitan city, his writing is incredible. Have a listen to this. This is one of the main characters is in bed with his lover. The incompatibility of life's elements in a tent at Camp 4, 27,600 feet. The idea which seemed at times to be her father's daimon sounded banal, emptied of meaning, of atmosphere by the altitude. Everest silences you, she confessed to Jibril Farishta, in a bed above which parachute silk formed a canopy of hollow Himalayas. I mean, isn't it just, the writing is gorgeous. It's stunning. There's one more that I want to share because it took my breath away when I read it. It was just so powerful. There's a main character. His father is dying. And in the final moments here, he has to go and be with his father at his deathbed. And there's just this beautiful line as he walks into the room and he's really resenting the fact that he's there. He doesn't want to be there. He's not sure how to deal with it. And then there's this line. Have a listen to this. Punches delivered from a deathbed left bruises that never faded. I don't know about you, but I hear lines like that and I think, wow, this is a gifted author. This is profound writing. And so once again, I want to give it 5 out of 5 or more because the writing is extraordinary, but the story itself, oh my goodness, it was just such hard work. So that's my book review for The Satanic Verses, Salman Rushdie. Like I said, provocative title. Some people will be offended that I've picked it up and read it and talked about it, but I really love to understand what's going on and why people are having the reactions to books that they're having. And I'm not a fan of book banning unless it's genuinely leading people to absolutely horrendously act in bad ways. And so that's why I read it, and I thought it was quite an extraordinary book, regardless of how hard I had to work. What's your last one?
So my last book was actually handed to me by child number 2. She came in and she said, "Mum, I think you're going to love this book. It's called The Girl You Left Behind by Jojo Moyes." Another war story. Set in 1916, French artist, and he leaves his wife to go fight at the front line. And it's just a story about her faith in their love and his ability to work through things. It was devastating and it just so powerful watching the ups and downs and the inhumanity of war and just love and even in spite of everything, seeing the goodness in what otherwise should be considered the enemy. And so for that, I would give it, again, probably 4.5 stars. Absolutely loved this read.
Okay, well, we will link to each of those books in the show notes. We hope that this has been a useful book club podcast episode. That's going to be the last one for this year. So any books that we read between now and our next one in January, we're not going to be able... Kylie, we're going to read so many books over Christmas.
I was just thinking that and thinking by the time we actually do our next review, it's going to be hard to pick one.
Yeah, we'll only be able to pick a couple. But we hope that this has been a fun break from the day-to-day parenting stuff that we always dive into. Tomorrow, it's I'll Do Better Tomorrow. We reflect on the week that's been, what's worked, what hasn't, how we can be better parents. We love the fact that you listen to the podcast. Thank you so very much for being with us. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. For more information about making your family happier, please check out our Black Friday sales. They are on right now, and the sales are ginormous with more to come tomorrow. All the details at happyfamilies.com.au.